Lisa always thought of herself as someone who paid attention to details. She noticed when her neighbor got a new haircut, remembered birthdays without Facebook reminders, and could spot a bargain from across the store. But somehow, she completely missed what was happening right under her nose. She and Tom had been married for 8 years. Not perfect years, what marriage is, but good enough that she never suspected anything was seriously wrong. They had their routines: Monday night takeout, weekend grocery shopping together, the occasional argument about whose turn it was to clean the bathroom. Normal stuff. Tom worked in sales and traveled a lot. Lisa was used to him being gone a few days every month. She'd kiss him goodbye, tell him to be safe, and go back to her own life until he returned. She never checked up on him. She trusted him. That was their deal. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, Lisa was paying bills at the kitchen table. Coffee in hand, calculator at the ready, she clicked through their online banking portal. Electric bill, mortgage, car payment, all the usual suspects. Then she opened the credit card statement and nearly spilled her coffee all over her laptop. What in the world? She whispered to herself, squinting at the screen. There were charges she didn't recognize. A $840 hotel stay at the Ocean Breeze Resort in Miami. 2 first-class plane tickets totaling over $1,200. Restaurant bills from places with fancy French names she couldn't even pronounce. Over $3,000 in charges that made no sense. Lisa's heart started racing. Had someone stolen her credit card information? She immediately reached for her wallet, but her card was right where it should be. Strange. She pulled out her phone and called Tom. It went straight to voicemail. "Hey, it's me," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Just checking in. Can you call me back when you get a chance? It's about the credit card. Love you." Tom had told her he was in Denver for a sales conference this week. The charges were from Miami. Lisa took a deep breath and tried to think logically. Maybe there was a simple explanation. Maybe the card had been compromised somehow. Maybe Tom had gone to Miami for work and forgotten to tell her. She decided to call the hotel directly. After a few minutes on hold with cheerful beach music playing in her ear, a friendly voice answered. "Thank you for calling the Ocean Breeze Resort. How may I help you today?" "Hi," Lisa said, her mouth suddenly dry. "I'm calling about a reservation under the name Thomas Wilson. I think there might be a mistake on my credit card statement." "Let me check that for you," the receptionist said. Lisa could hear keyboard clicks in the background. "Yes, Mr. Wilson checked in 3 days ago. Actually, he and his wife just extended their stay for another 3 nights. They must be enjoying our beachfront suite. Would you like me to connect you to their room?" Lisa felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. His wife? Tom was supposed to be in Denver alone at a sales conference, not in Miami with someone else. "No, that won't be necessary," she managed to say. "Thank you for your help." She hung up and sat perfectly still at the kitchen table, staring at the wall. The house suddenly felt too quiet, too empty. 8 years of marriage and now this. Tom wasn't in Denver. He was in Miami, in a beachfront suite, with a woman he was calling his wife. Lisa looked back at the credit card statement. It wasn't just the hotel. There were charges for jewelry, expensive dinners, even a sunset cruise. Tom wasn't just cheating. He was using her credit card to fund his romantic getaway. She felt anger rising inside her, replacing the shock. This wasn't just about the betrayal. He was stealing from her to impress another woman. How long had this been going on? What else didn't she know? Lisa took a screenshot of the credit card statement, then picked up her phone again. This time, she wasn't calling Tom. She was calling her bank. Lisa couldn't sleep that night. She kept picking up her phone to call Tom, then putting it down again. What would she even say? "Hey, honey, enjoying Miami with your fake wife?" No, she needed more information before confronting him. Morning came after hours of tossing and turning. Lisa called in sick to work, something she rarely did, and sat at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee that grew cold as she dug deeper into their finances. She logged into their joint bank account and started scrolling through months of transactions. At first glance, everything looked normal. But as she looked closer, a pattern emerged. Small withdrawals, $200 here, $300 there, always on days when Tom was supposedly traveling for work. They added up to thousands over the past few months. How did I miss this? she whispered to herself, rubbing her tired eyes. Lisa's hands shook as she reached for their phone bill. She rarely checked it. They were on an unlimited plan, and it was set to autopay. But now she scrutinized every detail. There was a number Tom texted and called constantly, sometimes late at night when he was supposedly asleep beside her. She wrote down the number and stared at it. Who was on the other end? Did this person know about her? Did they laugh together about how clueless Tom's real wife was? Lisa hesitated, then typed the number into a social media search. Nothing came up directly, but when she checked Tom's friends list, she found her. Vanessa Taylor. Young, blonde with perfect teeth and a tan that suggested she spent a lot of time outdoors. Her profile showed she worked at Tom's company in the marketing department. There were no photos of Tom on Vanessa's page. They'd been careful about that at least. But as Lisa scrolled through the comments, she noticed how often Vanessa mentioned business trips to the same cities Tom had visited. Chicago 3 weeks ago, Atlanta last month, Seattle in January. Got to meet the most amazing clients today. Vanessa had posted from Chicago with a photo of a fancy restaurant that had appeared on their credit card statement. Lisa felt sick. How long had this been going on right under her nose? She needed to be sure. Accusations this serious couldn't be based on social media stalking and bank statements alone. Lisa found herself searching for private investigators online, something she never imagined doing in her life. She called 3 before finding one who could meet with her that day. Frank was older, with kind eyes that had seen too many cases like hers. He sat across from Lisa at a coffee shop 2 towns over, where she wouldn't run into anyone she knew. "I need proof," she told him, sliding over printouts of the credit card statements and bank withdrawals. "I need to know how long this has been happening." Frank nodded, taking notes. "I'll need a retainer," he said gently. "This kind of work isn't cheap." Lisa had thought about this. She'd withdrawn money from her personal savings account, money Tom didn't know about. How much? 2 days later, Frank sent her an encrypted email with a link to a private folder. Lisa's hands trembled as she clicked through the photos. Tom and Vanessa holding hands at a restaurant, kissing in a parked car, entering a hotel together. The timestamps showed these were taken over the course of a week, at times when Tom had told her he was in meetings or having dinner with clients. The last photo showed them at the airport, checking in for their flight to Miami. Tom was using Lisa's credit card to pay for their tickets. Frank's report was detailed and clinical. According to his sources at Tom's office, the affair had been going on for approximately 8 months. Vanessa had been hired last year and worked directly with Tom on several projects. Lisa closed her laptop and sat in silence. The betrayal was one thing. Painful, yes, but people had affairs all the time. What cut deeper was the financial deception. Tom hadn't just stolen her trust, he'd literally stolen from her to finance his double life. She picked up her phone and called her credit card company. "I need to report unauthorized charges," she said, her voice stronger than she expected, "and I'd like to speak to someone about identity theft." Lisa spent the next 3 days gathering evidence. She made copies of bank statements, saved screenshots of text messages, and organized the photos from Frank in a neat folder. The credit card company had been surprisingly helpful, immediately reversing the charges and starting a fraud investigation. The customer service rep had suggested filing a police report, which Lisa did online the same day. "You're being so calm about this," her sister Jenny said when Lisa finally confided in her. "If it were me, I'd be throwing his stuff out the window." Lisa managed a small smile. "Trust me, I thought about it, but getting angry won't help me right now. I need to be smart about this." Jenny squeezed her hand. "You want me to be here when he gets back?" Lisa shook her head. "No, this is between me and Tom." According to Tom's texts, he was flying back on Friday evening. He told Lisa his flight from Denver would arrive at 7:30 p.m. The flight from Miami was scheduled to land at 7:15. Lisa tracked it online, watching the little airplane icon inch closer to home. She kept things simple. She made his favorite dinner, lasagna with garlic bread, and set the table nicely. She even put on the blue dress he always said he liked. Anyone looking in would see a wife waiting for her husband to return from a business trip. Only Lisa knew different. The front door opened at 8:20 p.m. "Honey, I'm home," Tom called out, the sound of his suitcase wheels rolling across the hardwood floor. In the kitchen, Lisa answered, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. Tom appeared in the doorway, his face slightly tanned. He was wearing a new shirt she'd never seen before. "Something smells amazing," he said, coming over to kiss her cheek. Lisa accepted the kiss without returning it. "How is Denver?" she asked. "Great. The conference went really well. I think we might land that new client I was telling you about." He sat down at the table. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "It wasn't trouble," Lisa said, serving him a generous portion of lasagna. "Tell me about the weather in Denver. I heard it was unusually warm this week." Tom nodded enthusiastically while reaching for the garlic bread. "Yeah, it was beautiful. Almost felt like being at the beach." "Interesting," Lisa said, sitting down across from him with an empty plate. "I've been checking the weather in Denver all week. They had snow on Tuesday and Wednesday." Tom's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "Well, I mean, it warmed up after that." "No," Lisa said softly, "it didn't." She pulled out the folder she'd hidden under her chair and placed it on the table between them. "I know where you really were, Tom." His face changed, confusion giving way to alarm. "What are you talking about?" Instead of answering, Lisa opened the folder and slid a photo across the table. It showed Tom and Vanessa at the Miami airport, his arm around her waist. "You were in Miami," Lisa said. "With her." Tom's face flushed red. "Lisa, I can explain." "Save it," she interrupted, her calm finally starting to crack. "You've been lying to me for months. I know about Vanessa. I know about the money you've been taking from our account, and I definitely know about the charges on my credit card." Tom's eyes widened. "Your credit card?" "Yes, Tom, my credit card. The one you stole to pay for first-class tickets and a beachfront suite. Did you think I wouldn't notice $3,000 in charges?" "I was going to pay you back," he said weakly. "It was just temporary." "Like your marriage vows." Lisa cut in. She slid another document across the table, the police report. Tom's face went pale as he read it. "You filed a police report against me? Are you serious?" "Credit card fraud is a crime," Lisa said simply. "So is identity theft." "But I'm your husband." "Which makes it worse," Lisa said, finally allowing her anger to show. "You didn't just cheat on me, Tom. You stole from me to do it. You used my money to take another woman on vacation." Tom ran his hands through his hair, panic setting in. "Lisa, please, we can work this out. I made a mistake." "Several mistakes," she corrected him. "Over 8 months, according to Frank." "Who's Frank?" "The private investigator I hired. He's very thorough." Lisa stood up and walked to the counter, picking up a second folder. "I've already spoken to a lawyer. These are divorce papers. You might want to get your own lawyer, considering the criminal charges you're facing." Tom stared at her in disbelief. "You can't be serious." "How was Miami?" Lisa asked again, her voice ice cold. "How was your trip with Vanessa? Was it worth it?" Tom spent the night on the couch, begging Lisa to reconsider, promising to end things with Vanessa, swearing he'd make everything right. Lisa barely slept, but her resolve didn't waver. By morning, she'd asked him to pack a bag and leave. "Where am I supposed to go?" he asked, looking lost in their kitchen. "That's not my problem anymore," Lisa replied, sliding a business card across the counter. "But you might want to call this lawyer. You're going to need one." Tom left with a duffel bag of clothes and his laptop. Lisa changed the locks that afternoon. 3 days passed in a blur of phone calls with her lawyer, the credit card company, and the bank. Lisa's lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Patricia, walked her through the divorce process and explained how Tom's credit card fraud would impact the proceedings. "It's actually good you filed that police report," Patricia said. "It establishes a paper trail that will help us in court." On the 4th day after Tom left, Lisa received a text from him. "Need to see you. Meeting Vanessa tonight to end things." "Then can we talk?" "I want to fix this." Lisa didn't respond. Let him figure out his own mess. That evening, her phone rang repeatedly with calls from Tom. She ignored them all. Finally, around 9 p.m., she got a text from an unknown number. "Is this Lisa?" "This is Vanessa Taylor. We need to talk." Lisa stared at her phone in disbelief. After a moment of consideration, she replied, I have nothing to say to you. The response came quickly. I didn't know he was married. He told me he was divorced. I just found out about you tonight. I'm so sorry. Lisa wasn't sure she believed that, but she felt a strange calm. Did he also tell you he paid for your Miami trip with my stolen credit card? There was a long pause before the next message appeared. What? He said it was his company card. Oh my God. Despite everything, Lisa felt a twinge of sympathy. Maybe Vanessa had been deceived too. The next morning, Lisa checked her credit card account online and noticed something odd. Tom had tried to use it again, this time at the Grand Plaza Hotel downtown. The charge had been declined. She called the credit card company. Yes, Mrs. Wilson, we declined that transaction as you requested. The representative confirmed. The card has been flagged for fraud. It appears Mr. Wilson attempted to use it last night at 11:43 p.m. Lisa's mind raced. Tom had told her he was meeting Vanessa to end things, but at nearly midnight, he was trying to check into a hotel, probably with Vanessa. His promises to fix their marriage were just more lies. She called Patricia and updated her on this new development. This helps our case, the lawyer assured her. It shows a pattern of deception continuing even after being caught. That afternoon, Lisa's doorbell rang. She opened it to find a tall man in a suit holding a badge. Mrs. Wilson, I'm Detective Rodriguez with the Financial Crimes Unit. I'd like to ask you some questions about the report you filed regarding credit card fraud. Lisa invited him in and explained everything, showing him her organized folder of evidence. This is very thorough, he said, looking impressed. Most people don't document things this well. I used to work in accounting, Lisa explained. I like things organized. The detective nodded. We'll be looking into this. Credit card fraud is a serious offense, even between spouses. Your husband could be facing charges that carry jail time. After the detective left, Lisa sat on her couch, overwhelmed by how quickly everything was moving. Her phone buzzed with a notification from her bank app, Account Alert. When she checked it, she discovered that Tom had attempted to withdraw money from their joint savings account, the one they had been putting money into for a house down payment. The transaction had been flagged because Lisa had placed a freeze on the account. Later that day, she received an email from Tom's company. She had forwarded evidence of his business trips with Vanessa to his boss 2 days earlier. The email informed her that Thomas Wilson had been placed on unpaid administrative leave pending an investigation into misuse of company time and resources. Within just 1 week, Tom's carefully constructed double life was collapsing around him. And Lisa, despite her broken heart, felt stronger than she had in years. 2 weeks after Tom moved out, Lisa sat in a conference room at Patricia's law office. The large windows offered a view of the city skyline, but Lisa barely noticed it. She was focused on the papers spread out before her. So he's contesting the divorce? Lisa asked, looking up at Patricia. Patricia nodded. Yes, and he's hired Alan Gregory as his attorney. Is that bad? Gregory has a reputation for aggressive tactics, Patricia explained. But don't worry, we have solid evidence of financial fraud, which strengthens our position considerably. Lisa took a deep breath. What's his defense? Patricia checked her notes. He's claiming you verbally authorized him to use your credit card for business expenses and that the Miami trip was a legitimate business trip with a colleague. Lisa couldn't help but laugh. A beachfront suite with his colleague. Does he really think anyone will believe that? People try all sorts of defenses when they're desperate, Patricia said with a shrug. But the credit card was in your name only, and he had no authorized user status. That's going to be difficult for him to explain away. Later that week, Lisa received notification that a court date had been set for next month. The following day, she got a call from Detective Rodriguez. Mrs. Wilson, I wanted to update you on your case, he said. The district attorney has reviewed the evidence and is considering pressing charges for credit card fraud against your husband. Lisa's heart raced. What does that mean exactly? Credit card fraud can carry jail time, he explained. Typically 6 months to 3 years, depending on the amount stolen and other factors. The DA will make the final decision, but I wanted you to know it's being taken seriously. Lisa hadn't really thought about Tom potentially going to jail. She just wanted out of the marriage and her money back. Thank you for letting me know, she said quietly. That evening, she received a text from Tom. Can we please talk? My lawyer says I could go to jail. I can't go to jail, Lisa. Please help me. She didn't respond, but the message bothered her all night. Despite everything, she didn't want Tom to go to jail. She just wanted justice. The next morning, she called Patricia. If Tom agrees to my terms for the divorce, can we ask the DA not to press criminal charges? Patricia explained that while they could make that request, the decision ultimately wasn't up to Lisa. But, she added, victim cooperation matters in these cases. If you express that you feel justice has been served through the divorce settlement, it could influence their decision. 2 days later, Lisa sat across from Tom and his lawyer in a mediation session. Tom looked terrible, unshaven, with dark circles under his eyes. My client is prepared to accept full responsibility for the unauthorized credit card charges, his lawyer began. He will provide full restitution plus interest and agrees to your proposed division of assets. Lisa glanced at Patricia, who gave a small nod. In exchange, his lawyer continued, we ask that Mrs. Wilson consider requesting leniency regarding potential criminal charges. I'll consider it, Lisa said, looking directly at Tom, if he tells me the truth. All of it, right now. Tom shifted uncomfortably. What do you want to know? How long was it really going on? And was she the only one? Tom stared at the table. About 10 months, he admitted. And yes, Vanessa was the only one. Did she know you were married? Tom hesitated before answering. Yes, I told her we were separated and getting divorced. Lisa nodded slowly, one more lie exposed. And the money from our savings account, where did it go? I bought her things. Jewelry, weekend trips. I was trying to impress her. Lisa felt a strange sense of calm watching Tom confess. The man she'd loved for years now seemed like a stranger, selfish and pathetic. I'll talk to the district attorney, she finally said. I don't want you in jail, but I want everything we discussed in the settlement. The house, the car, and full restitution for every penny you took. Tom nodded quickly. Thank you, Lisa. I know I don't deserve. You're right, she cut him off. You don't. As she walked out of the mediation room, Lisa realized something important. This legal battle wasn't just about money or punishment anymore. It was about reclaiming her life and her dignity. And for the first time since discovering Tom's betrayal, she felt truly in control. A month after the mediation, Lisa was sorting through old photos when her phone rang. It was Vanessa. Lisa hesitated before answering. Hello. Lisa, hi, Vanessa said, sounding nervous. I hope it's okay that I called. I wanted to apologize. Properly. Lisa sat down on the edge of her bed. I'm listening. I know nothing I say can fix what happened, Vanessa continued. But I wanted you to know that I truly didn't understand the full situation. Tom told me you two were separated and just waiting on divorce papers. And you believed him. Lisa tried to keep the bitterness out of her voice. I did. I know that sounds naive now. There was a pause. When I found out the truth that night, I ended things immediately. I haven't spoken to him since. Lisa wasn't sure what to say. Part of her wanted to lash out at this woman who had been with her husband, but another part recognized that Vanessa had been manipulated too. Thank you for telling me, Lisa finally said. I appreciate the apology. After they hung up, Lisa felt oddly lighter. She tucked the old photos back into their box and pushed it under the bed. Some memories were better left packed away. The following week, Lisa joined a support group for people who had experienced financial abuse in relationships. She'd been hesitant at first, but her therapist had suggested it might help. The group met in a community center downtown. 8 people sat in a circle of folding chairs, sharing stories that echoed pieces of Lisa's own experience. My husband opened credit cards in my name, a woman named Diane explained. I didn't find out until collection agencies started calling. My credit was ruined. My girlfriend convinced me to put our apartment in my name because her credit was bad, a young man named Ryan shared. When we broke up, she left me with thousands in unpaid rent and utility bills. As Lisa listened, she realized she wasn't alone. These people understood what she'd been through in a way that even her closest friends couldn't. When it was her turn, the words came easier than she expected. My husband stole my credit card to take his girlfriend to Miami. He spent $3,000 on a luxury hotel, first-class flights, and expensive dinners. Supportive nods around the circle encouraged her to continue. The worst part wasn't the money, Lisa admitted. It was realizing that our entire marriage had been built on lies. I thought I knew him, but I didn't know him at all. After the meeting, several members exchanged phone numbers. Diane invited Lisa for coffee, and they discovered they lived only a few blocks apart. They began meeting regularly, supporting each other through the difficult process of rebuilding their lives. Meanwhile, Tom's situation continued to deteriorate. His company completed their investigation and formally terminated his employment for violating their ethics policy. Lisa heard through mutual friends that he was struggling to find a new job with the pending legal issues hanging over him. Vanessa had completely disappeared from his life once the truth came out. His friends, many of whom had been couple friends with both Tom and Lisa, mostly took Lisa's side after learning what he'd done. One evening, Lisa came home to find Tom sitting on the steps of what used to be their house. "What are you doing here?" she asked, keeping her distance. "You're not supposed to come here." "I know," he said, standing up. He looked thinner, older somehow. "I just wanted to give you this in person." He handed her an envelope. Inside was a cashier's check for the full amount he had taken from her, plus interest. "I sold my car," he explained, "and borrowed some from my parents. It's all there." Lisa nodded, carefully putting the envelope in her purse. "Thank you. I'll let Patricia know." "I start a new job next week," Tom said. "It's entry-level, nothing like what I had before, but it's something." "Good luck with it," Lisa said, and she meant it. She didn't wish him ill anymore, she just wanted to move on. "I'm sorry," Tom said quietly, "for everything. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am truly sorry." Lisa looked at him, this man she had once loved enough to marry, who had betrayed her so completely. "I hope you learn from this, Tom. I really do." As she watched him walk away, Lisa felt the last piece of anger inside her begin to fade. She didn't forgive him, not yet, maybe not ever. But she was ready to close this chapter of her life and focus on writing the next one, on her own terms. 6 months had passed since Lisa had found those strange charges on her credit card. 6 months since her life had been turned upside down. Now, on a crisp autumn morning, she stood in her kitchen holding the final divorce papers. It was official. She was no longer Lisa Wilson, but Lisa Chen again, back to her maiden name, back to herself. She placed the papers on the counter and looked around. The house felt different now. She'd repainted the walls, rearranged the furniture, and planted a small garden in the backyard. Small changes that made the space truly hers. Her phone buzzed with a text from Diane. "Caught today, right? Call me after. We're all rooting for you." Lisa smiled. Her support group had become like family over the past months. They celebrated each other's victories and helped each other through the hard days. At the courthouse, Lisa sat quietly as the judge reviewed the case. Tom was there too, sitting with his lawyer on the other side of the room. He looked over at her once, but she kept her eyes forward. After reviewing the evidence and the terms of the settlement, the judge said, "I'm prepared to accept the agreement as presented. Mr. Wilson will pay restitution for the fraudulent charges plus interest and will forfeit his claim to the marital home and vehicle." The judge looked directly at Tom. "You should consider yourself fortunate, Mr. Wilson. The court takes a very dim view of financial fraud, particularly between spouses. Had Mrs. Chen not requested leniency, you would likely be facing jail time. Instead, you will serve 2 years of probation and complete 200 hours of community service." Tom nodded solemnly. "I understand, Your Honor." After the hearing, Lisa walked down the courthouse steps feeling lighter than she had in months. It was over. Really over. She had lunch with Patricia to celebrate, then drove home. As she pulled into her driveway, she noticed a small package on her doorstep. Inside was a travel guidebook for Italy with a note from her parents. "For your trip. We're so proud of you. Love, Mom and Dad." Lisa had been dreaming of visiting Italy for years. Tom had always dismissed the idea as too expensive, too impractical. Now, with part of her divorce settlement, she had booked a 2-week tour for the following month. Her first solo international trip. The thought still scared her a little, but the excitement outweighed the fear. That evening, she sat on her patio with a glass of wine, scrolling through pictures of Venice and Rome on her tablet. Her phone rang. It was Jenny. "So it's official?" her sister asked. "All done," Lisa confirmed. "The divorce is final, and Tom got probation instead of jail time." "How do you feel about that?" Lisa thought for a moment. "Honestly, it's the right outcome. Jail wouldn't have fixed anything. And this way, he has to work and pay back what he took." "You're too nice," Jenny said. "After what he did." "It's not about being nice," Lisa interrupted. "It's about closing this chapter and moving on. I don't want to carry around anger anymore. It's exhausting." After they hung up, Lisa watched the sunset from her patio. A year ago, she never could have imagined being where she was now, divorced, living alone, planning a solo trip to Italy. A year ago, she'd thought her life was settled, predictable, safe. She'd been wrong about so many things. About Tom. About their marriage. About herself. But the strangest part of it all was that Tom's betrayal had ultimately given her something unexpected: freedom. The painful unraveling of her marriage had forced her to discover her own strength, to build new friendships, to reimagine her future. When she'd found those credit card charges, she'd thought her life was falling apart. Now she realized it had actually been falling into place. As darkness settled over the neighborhood, Lisa made a mental list of things to pack for Italy. She'd need comfortable shoes for walking through ancient ruins, a good camera for capturing the art and architecture, a journal to record her thoughts. 6 months ago, she'd been a betrayed wife, hurt and angry, unsure of her next steps. Now she was just Lisa, stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever came next. Her husband had stolen her credit card and gone on a trip with his mistress, but it didn't work because it had set her free.